Coming up next on KPBS Evening Edition, SDG&E says it didn't think it needed more wildfire insurance back in 2007.
The debate over who should pay for damages caused by the '07 wildfires continues at the roundtable later tonight.
And a pension reform initiative lives another day.
We'll tell you what a San Diego judge had to say about that. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanne Farian.
And I'm Dwayne Brown. A San Diego judge today rejected a request to keep a proposed pension reform measure off the June ballot after a San Diego labor union filed a complaint about the initiative. The proposal would eliminate city pensions and replace them with a 401k plan for most new city employees. KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr has been closely following the story. She joins us from the News Center. So, Katie, what's the big issue in this case?
Well, Dwayne, the unions think basically that Mayor Jerry Sanders should have negotiated with them before placing this on the ballot. Sanders says he was acting as a private citizen and that this was an initiative, so he didn't need to negotiate with them, but the unions disagreed. They filed a complaint with California's Public Employment Relations Board and asked them to file an injunction to keep it off the ballot until it can be resolved. PERB did do that, but this morning a judge denied that injunction request. We have responses now from Carl DeMaio, who has been leading the effort to pass this pension reform initiative, and Mike Zucchett, who heads up the white-collar union, which initially filed the complaint.
We are extremely pleased by today's ruling that guarantees that the people's voice will be heard. The citizens will be able to vote on pension reform in June.
I think that people have been convinced that that pensions are the boogeyman in San Diego, and I think it's likely to pass because people are believing everything that that they're being fed by Carl DeMaio and friends. But at the end of the day, the initiative is an illegal initiative, and the city's not going to be able to implement it.
So, Katie, he says it's illegal. Where do we go from here?
Well, right now the issue will remain on the June ballot and people will get a chance to vote on it. However, the Employment Relations Board will still go forward with its process, which begins on Thursday. First, they'll try to mediate the dispute between the city and the unions, and if that doesn't work, which it probably won't, they'll assign an administrative law judge to hear the issue, and they'll basically have a trial. The judge will make a ruling, which is binding, though it can be appealed to the state appellate court. The process could take several months.
All right. KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr.
The fight over California's same-sex marriage ban won't go to the U.S. Supreme Court just yet. Backers of Proposition 8 have asked the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to review a split decision by 3 of its judges to overturn Proposition 8. The ruling issued 2 weeks ago was narrowly crafted, so it would apply only to California. Prop 8 sponsors have said they want a broader ruling allowing same-sex marriage bans in all states.
The only Marine convicted in the killings of unarmed Iraqi civilians in Haditha has been discharged. Frank Wuterich was given a general discharge under honorable conditions. That's a step down from an honorable discharge. Wuterich was reduced in rank from staff sergeant to private as part of a plea deal last month. He pleaded guilty to dereliction of duty in the 2005 incident.
The Navy says it discharged more than 1,500 sailors last year for using the synthetic drug spice. The Navy banned spice a year ago and produced a video to warn sailors about the dangers of the drug. Spice became popular because it couldn't be detected in random drug tests. But the Navy says the Armed Forces Medical Examiner System has developed a drug test that's able to detect the compounds in spice.
Drivers in Southern California are slightly worse than the rest of the country when it comes to texting or talking on a cell phone while driving. That survey comes from the State Office of Traffic Safety. Last week, more than 400 people in San Diego County were fined for distracted driving.
Don't do it.
20-year-old Chelsea Doherty says texting while driving is one of the things she's trying to stop doing. But it's easier said than done.
I don't like being with people who text and drive because I don't trust them. it's definitely something that I grab their phone when they text, but it's hard for me to put my phone down.
But she says public service announcements like this, showing the dangers of texting behind the wheel, are scary and convincing.
So the problem with the cell phone is that we stop focusing on our primary objective, which is to get somewhere safely.
Lieutenant David Gilmore says there's probably at least one cell phone in every car on the street or highway in San Diego. He likens distracted driving to being drunk behind the wheel.
And the fact that you're not able to focus on your primary objective, which is to drive down the road and not have a collision.
Last week, the Sheriff's Department partnered with the CHP, looking for people who were either texting or talking without a hands-free device.
We issued 414 cites to adult offenders. We issued 3 citations to juveniles.
Even drivers who use a hands-free device are 4 times more likely to get into a serious accident. This is what you're advised to do if you need to respond to a text while behind the wheel. Stop and park.
Like, I've had family members who've gotten pulled over for texting and driving, so I don't want to be one of them, so.
The fine for a first offense is $159, and it goes up to $279 if you're caught a second time texting while driving. Yesterday, we told you about a consumer group's warning our electricity rates could go up if San Diego Gas and Electric gets its way. The Utility Consumers Action Network says that means an increase of $356 more a year for the average consumer. Tonight, we hear from SDG&E at the roundtable.
In 2007, wildfires swept through San Diego County, killing 2 people and destroying 1,300 homes. 2 state agencies blamed the cause of the fires, including the largest, the Witch Creek Fire, on SDG&E's power lines. Now, the power company is asking ratepayers to retroactively cover costs for the Witch Creek and other fires. Joining me is SDG&E spokesperson Stephanie Donovan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So why is SDG&E asking customers through this special mechanism to pay for damages it caused in 2007?
Well, let's go back. If you can remember, I certainly can, in the October of 2007. We certainly do not dispute CAL FIRE's investigation that found that our equipment was the ignition source of 3 of those fires back in 2007. But let's not forget the hot, dry, extremely strong Santa Ana winds. They were a significant factor in not only the ignition source, but also in the terrible spread of the fire that caused so much damage.
But we also know that a report of the Consumer Protection and Safety Division did find that along with Santa Ana wind conditions, it was SDG&E's conductors and it was their opinion that SDG&E was in violation of some of the rules.
Now, you said the right word. It was their opinion, and that was never finding of fact. To date, there has been no finding of fact that SDG&E's actions did anything wrong. So,
does SDG&E think they did anything wrong?
SDG&E realized after the 2007 fires that we could do more, and we have done more in terms of strengthening our system to try to prevent our system's equipment being involved in anything in the future like we saw in 2007. Now, that's 2,500 poles that we have changed out in the backcountry in the high fire risk area, replacing the wood poles with steel poles. We also have used all kinds of technology to try to make sure that we know what's happening with the system and the weather's impact. I find it ironic that some people are saying today that if SDG&E had shut off the power, it could have prevented the Witch Fire. And we have had, as you know, over the past several years, made every attempt to try to do just that, and that was shot down both by the public and by the commission.
But that goes back to because one of your workers actually had alerted SDG&E to a problem, and SDG&E didn't respond and shut off the power.
Do you know how high the winds were at that time? There were a lot of outages, there were a lot of fires, and I think that if you can't just take a point in time and say that was the crux of the matter. So I really think that we better stick to the facts and not keep repeating claims by others as if they were fact.
So let's go back to the original question then. If SDG&E realizes, in retrospect, it could have done more, why should the ratepayer, in effect, pay for that learning opportunity that SDG&E has
I don't think we
encountered?
should try to confuse the facts here, okay? SDG&E has done its darndest to try to get as much wildfire or liability insurance. It was difficult after the 2003 fires, but we managed to get $1.1 billion, which we thought was adequate in 2007. I don't think anybody would have expected we'd see another conflagration like we saw in 2003, 4 years later. So we have liability insurance in place today that we had to scour the globe for, but we've just got $1 billion. The interesting thing is that if we had had enough, if it was available, we would have had it, but we didn't think we needed it at that time. But even so, those costs would have been borne by our customers. That's a cost of doing business, getting liability insurance. So it follows that this is basically what is not covered by insurance is a cost of doing business. When you figure that what happened during the obligation to fulfill our delivery of service to all customers was part of doing business, that is why the courts and the commission have found that those are appropriate costs to be picked up by the customers.
I think some people will argue, though, if there's no financial penalty or consequence to the utility company, if it gets passed on to the ratepayer, what will motivate the utility company to make sure it does its best to not, cause fire in the future?
I don't think it's a financial motivation. If you know anybody at SDG&E, you know how seriously we take our responsibility of providing safe, reliable service. And remember, the people at SDG&E are the ones who really get the job done. So when you think about SDG&E, think about the people who come out in the middle of the night to fix your power, to come out to make sure that your gas appliances are safe, who do all of this regardless of what the weather is like, although it's not so bad in San Diego, obviously. Frankly, in one of our proposals, we are proposing a sharing of costs between customers and shareholders, but we feel very comfortable and very proud of the effort that we have made to strengthen our system, to keep our system strong, and to protect our customers from anything that could go wrong in the future, we hope. We can't predict the future, obviously, but we're doing our best.
We haven't got a lot of time, but you mentioned sort of sharing in this cost, and I think people at home just have a sense of, is this fair? And if the utility right now, the way it stands, they're asking for the mechanism, this account that would allow it to pass this cost on to people. If the utilities, in a sense of fairness says, look, we know that maybe we ought to, our shareholders, this is a for-profit company, absorb some of this cost, and maybe we don't pass it all on to you. Do you think that the utility might be seen differently, from the public's point of view?
Well, I think we have to keep in mind that the people get their information from the news, and I'm not entirely convinced that our story has really been getting out there, which is why I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to kind of try to set the record straight on a couple of things. I think that it's difficult for customers to understand, and I understand their anger and their frustration. Their feeling that there's a lack of fairness in all of this, but I think you also have to understand what the regulatory compact is, if you will, what the agreement is. SDG&E serves everybody, regardless of the potential risk that might pose to our equipment and to our communities. And the other side of that is, as a result, there are costs that are borne by shareholders, or by customers, such as the cost of liability insurance, and in this case, the cost of the lack of liability insurance, but needing to put our system back together and also to provide the damages to those people who lost homes, et cetera.
Stephanie Donovan, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here. Later in the show, I'll be speaking with David Peffer, lead wildfire attorney for the Utility Consumer Action Network.
We'll have an update on the San Onofre nuclear power plant in just a moment. And later, we'll meet a medical student who's helping to keep care in healthcare. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tonight on KPBS at 8, Bill Clinton rose from a broken childhood in Arkansas to become one of the most successful politicians in modern American history. It's part 2 of Bill Clinton. Then at 10, Frontline investigates child death cases involving medical evidence that was later found to be unreliable. And at 11 for Black History Month, the story of John W. Jones and the Underground Railroad. That's all tonight on KPBS.
I'm Margaret Warner. On the next news hour, money and presidential politics as big donors and the campaigns file financial reports. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour. The American people have named PBS
the most trusted source of news and public affairs for the 8th year in a row. Trust. The American people have spoken.
Thank you.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
The Nuclear Regulatory Commission wants a follow-up inspection on the San Onofre nuclear power plant. It's been 3 weeks since a leak in a steam generator forced the shutdown of its Unit 3 reactor. It's still shut down tonight. An NRC spokesman says the request for an inspection is fairly routine. Inspectors should be at the North County site in the next week or two. We have more now on the SDG&E rate story and whether the public will have a chance to weigh in. Joanne and her guests are at the roundtable.
A San Diego-based watchdog agency is objecting to SDG&E's request for a special fire liability account. Joining me is David Peffer, attorney with the Utility Consumers Action Network. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
What are your objections to this account? It's actually called a wildfire expense balancing account. What are your objections?
Well, our main objection is that this is basically a rubber stamp pass-through mechanism that will allow SDG&E to pass through not only the cost of future wildfires, but the cost of the 2007 wildfires. They want to pass these all through on to consumers.
You say rubber stamp, but in all fairness, SDG&E, a spokesperson was here earlier in the show who said that there still has to be another hearing, that they can't just automatically start charging ratepayers.
Well, there does have to be a proceeding, but under SDG&E's proposed mechanism, the hearing only considers very narrow issues. There isn't really an opportunity to object to the fact that rates are being passed through. It's merely an issue of categorizing whether the rates passed through are 100% of the wildfire costs for strict liability or 95% if SDG&E was actually intentionally malfeasant or reckless in causing fires.
So why shouldn't this be a cost that customers pay? It's a cost of doing business, is it not?
This is far more than just a normal cost of business. What SDG&E is asking for is essentially super insurance. This is insurance that is free. It has unlimited liability to be borne by the customers, and it covers SDG&E even for intentional fires or reckless conduct.
So it was interesting. Stephanie Donovan from SDG&E did sort of mention also that one of their proposals looked at sharing the cost.
This is SDG&E's alternative proposal, and the share they're referring to is a 90-10 split, with 90% being borne by ratepayers and 10% being borne by shareholders. That still exposes ratepayers to nearly limitless liability.
Now, the other issue here is whether or not the public is involved at these hearings. We know that the public is involved when a utility wants to increase rates, but right now asking for this mechanism, this funding mechanism, can the public weigh in?
The public can weigh in and is weighing in through the participation of organizations like UCAN and the other interveners. There are several others. Public can also contact the California Public Utilities Commission. They're the ones making the decision, and the more they hear from the public, the better.
And we do know that we did receive a statement from them earlier today where they say they expect to announce some news shortly with regard to the public participation process of this hearing as well. Now, finally, before we go, David, is there not something to be said, though, too? I think Stephanie Donovan did want to point out that in the media, in the news, we've made a lot of assumptions about their sort of responsibility in the 2007 fires. Do they have a case to be made there as well?
SDG&E has claimed, or I'm sorry, Ms. Donovan has stated that there has been no finding of fact regarding SDG&E's liability and their responsibility for the 2007 fires. That is technically true, but it is misleading. There's no official finding of fact because they settled the deal and they settled the cases and the investigations, and part of that settlement was no admission of liability. The fact is that the investigations by CAL FIRE, the investigations by the other agencies, found that SDG&E was responsible for causing these fires.
Finally, when can the public expect to hear more about whether or not this is granted, this special account, or not granted?
This is an ongoing proceeding, so we don't have a firm timeline on it yet. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but because they have announced public participation hearings, and that's, I guess, breaking news, this is something that hopefully the public will have word of sooner rather than later.
Okay, David Peffer, thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Whether it's transplanting an organ or saving a premature baby, doctors can do things that would have been considered miracles 100 years ago. While medical science has evolved, the need for doctors to be caring and compassionate hasn't changed. UC San Diego Medical School is trying to make sure aspiring doctors get the message. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg tells us about one medical student who's seen the light.
There's something different going on today at UC San Diego Medical School. First and second year students are invited to hear from some of their soon-to-be graduating colleagues. These select few on the panel have been nominated by their peers to be in the Gold Humanism Honor Society. The organization honors medical students who have the talent to be a truly caring and empathetic doctor. Each panelist describes a moment when the light came on about what it means to be a compassionate physician. Perhaps the most interesting story comes from the final student to speak, 32-year-old Preetha Workman. Workman has a unique background. She did her undergraduate work at the U.S. Naval Academy. She then spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, rising to the rank of captain. In the midst of medical school, she's been raising a young child. Workman says she's realized being a good doctor requires a lot more than just book knowledge.
Ask any patient, ask any individual in our society, how do they feel the medical system treats them? Sometimes the care may not be technically enough, and they'll tell you, but I think a lot of times people feel ignored, abandoned, not listened to. And I think it's just having that awareness that I think our patients are going to start demanding more. Well, they want more. I would. I want that as a patient.
Workman tries to keep that in mind when she interacts with patients in the emergency room.
Hi, because all I get to see really is the triage note, and I understand you were recently diagnosed with pancreatic cancer?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well,
Workman takes the time to listen to patients and their family members.
I was always shopping with my grandson.
After she visits with a patient, Workman discusses each case with an ER doctor.
It sounds like he went to go see his oncologist over at the Morris Cancer Center today for a scheduled visit. He had chemotherapy his first round last Saturday, and he comes in, he's referred in. They said they were concerned there might be something going on with his heart.
Dr. Jim Dunford says physicians have to have good technical and clinical skills, but he says they also need to be able to relate to anyone who walks in the door.
You know, we have drug addicts, we have alcoholics, we have people with terrible metastatic cancer problems, heart failure, we have dementia patients, we have children where the parent is as much a patient. You got to read that setting, and within 2-3 seconds people are going to understand whether or not you really are into the problem and they're there to help them, or if you're just kind of trying to, just be a technician, and that's not what medicine is.
Dr. Dunford says physicians are involved in the real-life drama of people's lives, and they must play their part well.
If you're going in the room to tell a family that grandma's just died, you've got to be good at that. I mean, because those people will remember that experience for the rest of their life. It's very key that you know how to be able to communicate good and bad news and be able to share with people and still represent yourself as a professional.
When it's her turn to speak at UC San Diego Medical School, Workman describes an incident that really hit home. She was on her surgical rotation. Her medical team flew up to the Central Valley to collect a liver. The donor was a teenager who had been shot in the head. His mother made the decision to donate his organs to save someone else's life.
When I finally saw the results and how we saved someone, I was happy, but that day, as someone's mother, I had to mourn. So I'm not sure if being a doctor is making me a better mom. But I think being a mother is making me a much better doctor.
That's KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg. Preetha Workman, by the way, will graduate from UC San Diego Medical School this year. She plans to take a year off before she does her residency. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Dinosaurs no longer exist, but giants still roam our planet. For centuries, whales and dolphins have captivated and confounded us. Now, two top cameramen will reach across the divide and enter the realm of giants.
Tomorrow beginning at 8, only on KPBS.
I love KPBS because when I wake up in the morning and that radio station goes on, 89.5 goes on, I know that I am going to get information that I can trust, that I can respect, that I can value, and I know I'm getting the truth.
There's nothing in life that moves me as much as being on stage does.
Grammy Award winner Adele, live from the Artist Den, Friday at 11 on KPBS.
Welcome back to the Public Square on KPBS Evening Edition. With the price of gas steadily rising this month, I asked you last night how much you're paying to fill up in your neighborhood. I got an interesting answer from Scott Marinoff. He writes, "You asked how much per gallon I'm paying for gasoline in San Diego. The answer is, I don't pay a dime. I haven't relied on a car since 2003. For $18 a month, I get unlimited rides on the bus and trolley system." For nearly 40 years, hardly any real progress has been made in developing and implementing alternatives to our petroleum-based transportation system. We should have and could have been working toward this all along, but we didn't. And now many are paying a steep price for this complacency. Well, if you want to add to Scott's comments, you can email me, jferrian@kpbs.org. I may use some of them on the air, or follow us on Twitter. And of course, we always like it when you like us on Facebook. And now let's go back to the news desk, where Dwayne has a recap of tonight's top stories.
Pension reform will stay on the June ballot in San Diego. Today, a judge refused a request for a temporary restraining order. It was made by the State Public Employment Relations Board after a complaint by city union leaders. Proposition 8 could go back before a federal appeals court. Supporters of the state's same-sex marriage ban are asking for a review of a 3-judge panel's ruling to overturn Prop 8. They want the review done by a larger panel of the same court. And the Marine Corps has discharged the only serviceman convicted in the killings of unarmed Iraqi civilians in Haditha in 2005. Frank Wuderich received a general discharge under honorable conditions. He was demoted to private in exchange for pleading guilty to dereliction of duty in the case. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks again for joining us. You have a great night. We leave you with a look at the forecast.